Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Your Beloved Storyteller. Every now and then, a storyteller stumbles across something that isn't meant to scare you. It isn't meant to make you laugh. It isn't meant to tell a traditional story. Sometimes, a storyteller simply discovers a thought that refuses to let go. And tonight is one of those nights. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It isn't horror, and it isn't really an essay either. It's a reflection. A question that quietly found me a few nights ago and refused to leave my mind. And oddly enough, it began with something completely ordinary. I replaced my computer. That's it. There was no haunted house. There was no cursed object. There was no monster waiting in the dark. There was just a worn-out Dell sitting silently beside the machine that had come to replace it. But the longer I looked at it, the more one simple question began to haunt me. Why do we become attached to things that can't love us back? And the answer took me to somewhere I wasn't expecting. It wasn't about computers at all. It was about us, about memory, about time, about what it means to outgrow the things that once carried us, and what it feels like to realize that one day we may become the old machines ourselves. So tonight, I don't have a horror story to tell you. I have a thought, one that I hope stays with a lot of you long after this video ends. Let's begin. My name is Marcus Zofia Vinitri, and I recently replaced my computer. That doesn't sound like much of a story. People replace things every day. Phones, cars, cameras, furniture, it's just part of life. At least, that's what I thought. For years, every story I've ever written began on a 2009 Dell computer. Every late night idea, every upload, every milestone, every moment where I stared at a blank page wondering if I had another story left to tell, that old computer was there for it all. It never asked for recognition. It never demanded attention. It simply waited for me every night, ready to help bring another story in this world for all of you. But as this channel grew, and as I've grown, and eventually, I had to admit something. It couldn't keep up anymore. Rendering took longer, editings became frustrating, and simple tasks became exhausting. The machine that had carried me for years could no longer carry me where I wanted to go. So I did what anyone was taught to do. I bought a newer computer. I transferred every file, every document, every story. I plugged in the new computer and turned it on. But instead of looking forward, I looked back. I looked back at the old one, and something happened that I wasn't expecting. I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel relieved. I felt guilt. Not because I thought the computer had feelings. Not because I believe objects are alive. But because, for just a moment, it felt like I was walking away from something that had quite literally sat beside me for years. That feeling made me wonder, why do we do that? Why can a worn-out guitar make a musician cry? Why can an old camera mean more to a photographer than the newest one on the shelf? Why do people smile when they see the first car they've ever owned? It isn't because those things are irreplaceable. They aren't. There are faster computers, there are better cameras, there are newer cars, but that was never the point. The point is that those objects became the background to our lives. They were there while we learned, while we failed, while we celebrate, and while we became someone new. They don't contain our memories, they simply remind us of those memories and where they were made. And I think that's an important difference. They live inside us. The objects is simply a bookmark, a way to find a page again. Then another thought found me. And this one hit me deeper. Because one day, this just won't happen to our stuff. This won't happen to your car. This won't happen to your phone. No, this will also happen to us. Every generation believes it's building the future. Until one morning they wake up and realize they've become the past. Someone younger will tell their stories better than I do. And someone faster will create in ways I can't even imagine. Machines will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence will become more capable than we can imagine. And technology will keep marching forward longer after I'm gone. One day, I won't even be the best. And if I'm lucky enough to grow old, there will come a morning where I quietly step aside just as my old Dell did. And that thought scared me. Because if a computer can be replaced, what's stopping the same thing from happening to us? Then I realized I had been asking the wrong questions. My old computer wasn't valuable because it was the fastest. It wasn't valuable because it was the newest. And it wasn't valuable because no one could replace it. It was valuable because it was there. It stood beside me while I found my voice, and it witnessed every failure and every breakthrough. Every late night where I wondered if any of this would matter, the new computer can write the next chapter. But it can never write the first one. And maybe that's true for us too. Perhaps our purpose was never to remain the newest. Perhaps our purpose was simply to carry the story forward until someone else could carry it further. After all, every teacher is eventually surpassed by a student, and every parent is eventually watched over by their child. Every craftsman leaves behind techniques someone else will improve, and every storyteller inspires another. That isn't failure. That's a legacy. And one day, every object we own will disappear. It will wear out, break, be donated, be forgotten, and one day, so will we. Our voices will fall silent, our chairs will sit empty, and someone else will pick up the tools we once held, and someone else will continue the work we started. And strangely, I don't find that depressing anymore. Because being surpassed isn't the same thing as being forgotten. Some things can be replaced. Very few things can be repeated. The old Dell didn't make me a storyteller. It simply handed It simply happened to be sitting beside me while I became one. And maybe that's why saying goodbye felt so strange. Not because I was losing a computer, but because I was finally able to see how far we traveled together. So let me ask you something. What's one ordinary object that reminds you of a chapter in your life? Not because you still need it, not because you could never replace it, but because every time you see it, you remember the person you were when it quietly stood beside you. I'd love to hear your story. Because behind every ordinary object is proof that someone, somewhere, was becoming who they always were meant to be.